No matter who you are, where you live, or what kind of personality you have no doubt experienced what it feels like to be in an argument. Growing up, I'd argue with my brother. Who doesn't, right? And also my mom. We'd argue a lot too. But everyone has a go-to style for arguing. In the same way, nearly everybody has something they want to fight for, a subject or something that just really gets you ready to throw down. Our worlds are full of arguments, and the options are endless. When the world around you is in constant conflict, most people tend to do one of three things. Go straight to anger, maybe they feel torn, or maybe they couldn't care less. But when we really get involved in an argument, we all just really want one thing, don't we? Win, no matter what. We want to win that argument. And we all have a few tactics that we've honed to help us win. Maybe it's yelling or silence, ghosting somebody or showing up to a fight, talking to the person or talking about them so everybody else knows how wrong they are, and so on. So whether it's in our homes, on social media, or in the culture that we observe around us, we are surrounded by big questions with big arguments for and against nearly everything we can think of. So with that in mind, in a time full of unavoidable arguments, what are we supposed to do? How can we get better at arguing? Wait a minute. How can we get better at arguing? Yeah, no, for real. How can we do a better job at arguing? So we're going to look at a passage from the book of James. And James was the brother of Jesus. And what makes James so interesting is that he didn't grow up thinking that Jesus was the Son of God. He grew up thinking that Jesus was just his older brother. So when Jesus left home and started teaching in the countryside and traveling around with messages about what God was like, what did James do? Well, he stayed away. The point is, we can assume James responded that way because they were siblings. And I'm willing to guess that they also had conflict. It seems natural that they would have, right? That's why it's interesting to read what James had to say about conflict, about tension and convincing others that you're right. James 1:19 says this. It says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." You see, James began to see something he didn't see before. His brother wasn't acting like God. He was God in a body. And when James changed his mind about Jesus and saw him for who he really was, it put everything else into perspective, including the conflict he had. So James tells us to listen first. Hear things from other person's perspective. Listen first with the intent of learning instead of trying to change somebody else's mind. He also said that we should be slow to speak and slow to become angry. And this is important because it doesn't mean that we shouldn't speak at all. And it doesn't mean we should just sit back and take whatever someone throws at us. But it does mean that we don't speak reactively. We pause, we take a deep breath, compose our thoughts, compose our emotions before speaking. And hey, it's okay to do that, really. We all know what it's like to be quick to speak and quick to become angry. And often the people we're fighting with will matter far longer than the thing we're arguing about. And so here's a reality that will save you in your relationships if you can just get this. You never win an argument if you lose the relationship. So maybe instead of asking, how do I win this argument? The question we should be asking is, how do I win the relationship? Figuring out how to handle arguments or conflict or disagreements has been one of the hardest parts of being a mature human. And it's not easy, but there are a few tips I've discovered that make it a little more possible. First one is memorize this one verse. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. James 1:19. Now, this isn't something that most people do, is it? But if you'll put these words into practice, it can change your life and the lives of others too. The next thing to do is pause and pray. Ask God for wisdom in how to handle that conflict. and then be patient, and He will do it. And lastly, empathize. Understand and share the feelings of other people. This is important in order to learn from their perspective, and it takes away the selfishness from arguing and the arguing side of things. Listen, we may not be able to change the way people behave when it comes to conflict or arguing or fighting, but we can change how we behave in those situations. So as you go about the rest of your week, think about one relationship that would be better if you practice this verse. Then challenge yourself to do just that. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry with. Now you fill in the blank with whoever that is.